Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Rhody Football Gameday. I'm Noah McLane alongside Connor Derosia and Jonny Blair. And, folks, as usual, we have a fantastic show for you this week. We're going to take a look at the Week 7 recap. We're going to take a look at what Week 8 will bring to us. And, guys, we will also talk about some game previews and predictions and a heck of a lot more. All of that to come right here on Rhody Football Gameday. Welcome back, everyone, to Rhody Football Gameday. And let's break down, guys, Week 7. Now, there was a lot of teams off in that week, but nonetheless, as we know, the Rams improving to 5-1 with a decisive victory over Brown. We saw some late second-half performances that came into play, as we've seen similarly in a lot of games. The Rams now keeping that cup right here in Kingston for a 6th consecutive year in a row, which is a record for program history. And it's also noting, guys, that this was one of the most complete games that we've seen the Rams play so far.
Yes, it was a great win by the Rams, but not enough to get us propelled over Delaware, as the script's trying to get away from me there. Delaware remains top of the CAA as they beat Maine this past week, 44-21. But it's worth noting that since they are moving to FBS next year, they are not eligible to be ranked. So they are not ranked in any major ranking platform. On top of that, Bryant remains winless in conference as they fall to University of Albany at home, 24-17. Big victory for University of Albany. Avoids falling to 2-4, so their record sits at 3-3 with playoff hopes still alive.
And then looking forward to the New Hampshire Wildcats, the team that Rhode Island is about to head up to go face. They took their second conference victory of the year against Elon by a score of 17-10. But then lastly, Towson beat Norfolk State in a non-conference game by a score of 28-23, a high-scoring affair in that one. And that's going to do it, honestly, for the CAA. There's a lot of teams on their bye week, so not much of an update in the CAA.
Yeah, a lot of teams off last week, but we have a lot to talk about for the Week 8 preview. We'll be back right after this on Rhody Football Gameday. Well, guys, we talked about Week 7 as we look into Week 8 now. And, well, the CAA this Saturday will be in full swing. Stony Brook goes down to Towson, as well as Villanova. The Wildcats will head up north, even more north than Connor and my alma mater in Vermont. They'll head down to Maine to play Maine, which is an important game to look for because, guys, Maine will play URI 1 week from this Saturday.
Yeah, Brian also this week is leaving the Ocean State. They're going down to Jersey to take on Monmouth, who's been an incredibly high-scoring offense, highest-scoring team in the conference. Hampton's taking on North Carolina A&T, and then Campbell will also take on William and Mary.
And then also looking forward, we got UAlbany hosting Elon. Delaware is going to take on their toughest opponent of the year in the Richmond Spiders. And that's a game worth noting because Delaware, of course, atop the CAA, right ahead of the Rhode Island Rams. And then, of course, obviously, the Rams leaving tomorrow afternoon to go head up to New Hampshire to take on the Wildcats.
Yeah, the Rams have not won in Durham for a long time, guys. And, of course, this weekend is something to look forward to. So we will see what they can do. Two ranked teams, going head-to-head. So we will see what they can do this Saturday against UNH. Welcome back, everyone, to Rhody Football Gameday. Connor Derosia, Jonny Blair, and myself, Noah McLane. And, guys, we have hit the halfway mark of quite an eventful season so far. And let's jump in to where we stand currently in the standings right now. Now, when you look at the top, of course, Delaware at 6-0. They are also 3-0 in conference. They're number 1, and only behind them by that one loss right now. Rhode Island tied with Villanova at 5-1 and both 2-0 in conference. Rhode Island 3-0 in conference there. And then Richmond and New Hampshire trail with a record of 4-2 and 2-0 overall records in the CAA.
Yeah, now moving to the one-loss conference battle teams. You have the likes of Stony Brook, William & Mary, Monmouth, Towson, and University of Albany. Monmouth and William & Mary both have looked like great teams. They both sit at around 500 records, but they are sneaky good teams, even though they not necessarily are not towards the top of the conference right now. Maine finds itself at 1-2 entering the weekend, and then the winless teams in conference are Hampton, Bryant, Campbell, Elon, and North Carolina A&T.
And now kind of focusing in on Rhode Island. For the Rams, they're middle of the pack in the CAA in scoring, averaging just above 24 points a game, while their defense, though, has been their strong suit, ranking 6th in the conference in yards allowed, but also kind of on the middle of the pack area in terms of points allowed per game with just over 26. But then their offense has most definitely picked it up as of late, so we're kind of expecting them to continue their rise through the CAA.
Yeah, and also, guys, a little off script, but when you look at this defense, what it gives up, if you take out that Minnesota game where they let up almost 50 points, those averages drop drastically. That's kind of an outlier. You know, we had that game where we let up 40-plus points as well, but minus that near 50 ball, this Rhode Island defense has been great, especially in conference.
I mean, absolutely. And when you talk about that, guys, there's a saying, defense wins championships, and of course that speaks true. But also that offense, as you talked about, Johnny, it needs to get going. It needs to continue to roll. Of course, it's gotten better. The run game especially has looked much better. But that's going to need to come into play this weekend against new UNH. Let's talk about something. We're at a very important part of our season. It's the climb, so to say, right now. Because when you think about where the Rams have finished, which is trying to get over that 8-win mark, they've just fallen short of the last couple of years. Every game becomes more important. Now, this weekend, they have once again found themselves ranked, which they have been for the last couple of weeks. They currently sit 16th in the Stats Perform Top 25 and 17th in the coaches poll. The first time that the Rams will head down and face another ranked opponent in UNH. So it'll be critical to see what they can do against UNH this weekend.
Yeah, and the Wildcats, they are slightly behind the Rams in the rankings. That's their 24th and 19th in their respective polls. But they're no slouches. As we've seen these last few years, every game has come down to the wire. The last 6 years, it's been 3-3 Rams and Wildcats every single time the home team has won. So there's an opportunity for this special Rams team to do something even special than what they've done so far, getting to this 5-1 record, and jump to 6-1 and beat a ranked opponent for the first time this year.
Yeah, and I don't think it should be understated what a win in Durham would do for this Rams program. You did mention that they are 16th and 17th in their respective polls, but you look at the teams that this win could potentially vault the Rams over. It seems like William and Mary and Richmond, both in the CAA, that would put the Rams in the top 15 in the FCS conversation. A big win if they could get that in Durham. And then, obviously, we all know that there are 24 spots in the FCS playoffs. So if the Rams can just hang around in this area, just be in the conversation, that would be a win in itself. And obviously, the campus life, if the Rams were to go all the way to New Hampshire and steal a win on Saturday, I'm not even sure what would happen on campus.
Well, it certainly would be crucial. And yesterday, guys, had a chance to sit down with head coach Jim Fleming, and he said, we've kind of seen that mid-season breakdown, right, where you have a couple of really great games to start off the season, but then things kind of go down. You start to pick it back up. What we talked about falling just short of that, that can't happen. This weekend is a statement game that URI needs to win, and we will see what they can do just on Saturday. Welcome back to Rhody Football Gameday, and guys, let's talk a little bit about the opponent that URI faces in UNH this weekend. A lot of things to look at. We're going to talk about both the offense and the defense. And, Johnny, why don't you talk on the offense a little bit here?
Yeah, New Hampshire is led by a very, very aggressive quarterback named Seth Morgan, and he has a very lethal receiving trio in Logan Tomlinson, Caleb Burke, and Joey Corcoran, who they've been one of the most dominating passing offenses in the entire conference. But then also on the running game, Isaac Saeed is not a primary running back, but he has found a lot of success on the ground for the Wildcats this year.
Yeah, and then the Wildcats' defensive line is kind of where they make their bread and butter on defense. They're terrific at getting after the quarterback. One area they do struggle is on the ground. Running backs and scrambling running backs like Devin Farrell have been able to find success moving out of the pocket and finding ways to escape. So look for that to be one of the keys to success for Rhode Island.
Yeah, we talked about that ground game starting to get progressively more and more efficient in these last couple of weeks. That needs to come into play, take advantage of that weak spot. And we're going to talk about some of the predictions for this weekend's game. And Connor, hopefully you brought your A game this week. No silliness. Which team and who scores the first touchdown?
Yeah, I think I'm going Rhode Island friendly this week. I think Malik Grant gets in the end zone first. This Wildcat defense has struggled against the ground, and Malik Grant against these bad D-lines that struggle against the run. Although their D-line is good getting to the quarterback, they struggle to stop the run. I think he gets in the end zone early and fast.
Yeah, and Johnny?
And for me, I think it's actually going to be the passing game for Rhode Island that gets in. I think it's going to be wide receiver Marquise Buchanan. You saw him in this past week against Brown. He had a very big contribution in that game through the air. I think he continues that success on the road Rhode Island's going to look to score quick because of the fact that they're in a hostile environment up in New Hampshire. I think that Buchanan gets the scoring started.
Now, guys, Rhode Island has struggled to score in the first half. And for that reason, I'm going to say that Caleb Burke is going to catch one in the end zone to start it off. Now, I don't think that UNH is going to win. I know I'm getting ahead of myself here. However, I do think that they are going to be the first team to score. I think that they're going to come out and they're going to make a statement at home, but URI will have to battle back. With that being said, Connor, we'll start with you. Who has the play of the game, and maybe what does that look like?
Yeah, I'm stealing a little bit from Johnny Blair over there. I think Marquise Buchanan, he had a massive week last weekend with 9 catches over 100 yards and that nice touchdown grab, especially mossing his defender in the right end zone. So I think he's got a big play of the game. Wouldn't be surprised if he rises over top and mosses someone again this weekend.
Johnny?
For me, it's going to be on the defensive side. I'm going to talk about the man we've spoken so much about this entire year, even dating back to last year. It's outside linebacker A.J. Pena. It's always about him on the defensive side of the ball. Now, I did mention the passing attack that this UNH team has. I think that A.J. Pena is going to have a big role in this game to try and get back there and affect the quarterback fast. And I think he does that, having to play the game.
Now, guys, I'm going to stick on the defensive side, but instead of mentioning one specific guy, I'm going to say the entire secondary. Now, we know this secondary is a little bit banged up, but that did not stop this secondary for URI last week from being very, very efficient, including an interception last weekend against Brown. I think that secondary is going to be the key to making sure against a very high-powered pass offense for the Wildcats that is how URI will get this victory. And now let's move on to the breakout performance of the week. Connor, what do you got for me?
It's not necessarily a breakout performance, but I think Devin Farrell plays a clean game. We've seen him struggle with interceptions and turning the ball over so far this season. I think he plays a clean game, no interceptions, finds Marquise Buchanan, finds Greg Gaines III, finds John Harris Jr., just get them the ball in open space, and I think he has a clean game, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, and leads Rhode Island to a victory.
Johnny?
For me, it's a pick I've made before in prior weeks, but I'm going to go back to it because I think it's just so important. I think it's the URI offensive line as a group. I think that Connor had previously mentioned how elite the UNH defensive line is, and I think that combined with how much success URI has had on the ground in these past few weeks, I think that is going to be a big challenge for this URI offense because we know that how important the running game is to their success as a group, and so I think that it's going to be a big game for the URI offensive line to kind of show what they're made of on the road against a very good defensive line.
Yeah, and Connor, kind of similar to you, this is a guy that we've mentioned before, but however, I think he's really going to make a statement this weekend. I'm going to go with Wesley Neal Jr. I think he's been really good. He's just his energy is unmatched. He comes off the field, he's always fired up, and when he goes in, he locks in to another level. He is the type of guy that will get things done for this team, and I think he's going to be the guy to do it for URI this weekend. And the final thing we have is a final score prediction, and who will win this contest. Connor, what do you got for me?
Yeah, I've got a massive Rhode Island victory this week, 34-14. I think, Noah, you spoke on that midseason lull. Coach Flem thinks, this team might be stepping off the gas pedal a little bit. I think Flem this week has drilled it into their head to beat New Hampshire, and I think it's been a trouble for the Rams going up to Durham. But I think we finally get that historic win in Durham, and we do it in dominant fashion, 34-14.
Fantastic. Johnny, what do you got for me?
For me, I'm going to take Connor's role here.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to be the villain this week. I think it's going to be too tall of a task for this Rhode Island team to go all the way up to New Hampshire tomorrow and play a very good New Hampshire team, as we've talked about this entire episode. And it's not really – we've seen Rhode Island make a couple of costly mistakes these last few weeks. Like, look at Devin Farrell last week. He had 2 picks. Both that could have been a lot more costly than they were. But I think that UNH is a good team, and they would capitalize on mistakes made by this URI offense. So this week I'm going to play a little bit of the villain here, kind of take Connor's role, and I'm going to roll with the Wildcats taking a win against the Rams, unfortunately.
Now, I'm going to go somewhere in between, which is Rhode Island victory, but maybe not to the extent that you think, Connor. I'm going to say that Rhode Island gets it done by a final score of 21-17, and I think that Rhode Island sneaks one out. It's going to be a tight one down the stretch. The second half heroics are going to come into play, and Rhode Island will remain undefeated in CAA play. That's my prediction. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. We appreciate you tuning in. Again, New Hampshire and URI this weekend. Make sure to tune in. And one last time, for Connor Derosia, Johnny Blair, myself, Noah McLane, saying stay safe, stay dry, and go Rhody.